All right, moving on into our next topic here. We are going to be moving on from the chaos at Marvel. We're going to be talking about the chaos as Disney overall. Well, Disney Animation has been kind of struggling. Disney Pixar has also been struggling. Marvel, as we've talked about, has been struggling. And Star Wars has not had a movie since Rise of Skywalker, which was not that good, and also has been struggling. So, why is Disney struggling? Well, we're going to be talking about that right now. But first, I do want to mention their latest film that has come out, Wish. Wish came out. I saw it. It was and that's the problem. All right. Right now, if we look at the box office, and why I'm focusing so much on box office is because this is kind of how we gauge on how people are excited to go out and see a film. And it's not that well. Right now, it opened. Now, it did have that Thanksgiving Day weekend kind of feel, and it released on a Tuesday. But if we look at the weekend itself, it only grabbed 19 million. Napoleon, a historical drama, beat out a Disney family film. I don't think that would make sense to me if you told me that a month ago. And right now, currently, it has just shy of 50 million worldwide. This is a movie that needs to probably make 300 plus million to break even. I would say probably closer to 400 with how they marketed this film. And this is they really pushed this film because this was the film that celebrated Disney 100, Disney's 100th anniversary. And it's just not doing well. It's not grabbing the attention. And that's kind of how the past Disney films as a whole have looked. I mean, Wish is going to flop at the box office. The Marvels, like we talked about, is flopping at the box office. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny flopped at the box office. Elemental, the Pixar film, looked like it was going to flop at the box office based on its opening, but actually exceeded to just shy, I believe, of $500 million. So that one actually did really well, and I think it's a really good Pixar film. It's about right in the middle of the pack for me. But then we had The Little Mermaid. This is a film that barely broke even, but it did. Another Disney live-action one there. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, a rare hit for Marvel nowadays. That did well, breaking $800 million at the box office. But then you had Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. That did not do well at all. It didn't even hit 500 million. I think it just got to 400. And then, like I said, we go back. Obviously, Avatar: The Way of Water. That was a Fox film that we know how that did. That did pretty well, didn't it, CJ?
Oh, yeah, it did.
Yeah, it did. But yeah, I mean, we look at some of the other ones, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, not loved, but it was good. They were given a really tough hand with that film, obviously. Strange World, though, what is that? People don't even, I bet if you ask somebody in your life, they have no idea what Strange World is. It was a Disney animation film that came out last year at this time and just completely flopped. I mean, awful. It was not a good film. And then you got your Thor, Love and Thunder, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, Pixar's Lightyear, Pixar's Turning Red, Black Widow, Shang-Chi did okay, Eternals, I could go on and on here. But the point is all these films I've listed, I feel like there's more bad than there is good. And usually for Disney, it's the reverse. Now, why is this? Well, I think a lot of it is because they have focused on quantity over quality, and that is a big reason why I think I have to blame Bob Chapek for that. Not entirely, but a little bit, because when he came in after Bob Iger stepped down as CEO and he was tapped as the replacement, he really focused everything on Disney Plus, and he wanted to make that the best, the biggest streaming service as possible, which is what Hollywood is having as a mistake overall. It's not just Disney. But Disney, I would say, has suffered the most from this. And he made Kevin Feige produce, that 8 shows a year plus 3 movies or something like that. Just totally blew out the MCU. Star Wars, just hasn't really done much. I mean, movies have been announced and then creators have been attached to them and then they never happen. They get fired. That's happened, I feel like, 500 times at this point. We'll even see if this Rey movie is eventually going to happen. How long is Kathleen Kennedy going to have that job? I don't know. But Star Wars, it's in shambles. So is Lucasfilm. I mean, hell, Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny did not do well, and that budget was crazy. That's a whole nother video, though. And then Pixar, I would say, it's Pixar, but it's not an event anymore when Pixar films come out. You want to know why? It's because all of them have been released on Disney Plus since 2020. Soul, which I think is a phenomenal Pixar film, Won Best Animated Film at the Oscars. I loved it. It was my favorite film that year. That was Disney Plus. Turning Red, another great Pixar film, Disney Plus. Luca, Disney Plus. When people had Pixar films coming to theaters, it was an event. They didn't always make like, the big bucks, $800 million, but they would at least get over $500 million for the most part, like Incredibles 2 did. I mean, that one was a huge success for them. Toy Story 4, Toy Story 3. I mean, Toy Story always does well. Frozen doing well. But the brand of Pixar was ruined by the Disney Plus decision. The Disney Plus shows from Marvel and even Lucasfilm with Star Wars has been a disappointment. And that's because I think they're rushing the creative process too much. And the suits over at Disney were in charge when Chapek was there, which meant the creatives no longer had the final say. And I think a lot of that is to blame for Disney's failing right now. Do I think they'll recover now that Iger's back at the helm? Yes. But just like Chapek, just like we saw his effect after about 2 years since he took over, I don't think we're going to see Iger coming back to fix it. We're not going to see that effect until maybe 2 years from now. So that's kind of what my take is on it right now. CJ, what do you think about what I said, and how do you see this whole mess right now that Disney's in?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with a lot of things there. And honestly, I think we're witnessing a bit of a collapse of one of the great American brands.
Mm,
Honestly, it's been around for over 100 years.
right.
And I'll preface everything by saying that Disney's been in rough spots before. They were in really hard times in the early 80s, when they were almost going to be bought, hostile takeover. They were going to be bought out by another company, and a lot of things
Yeah.
like that. And so they've and similar, they had slates of movies that were terrible. They were getting their butts kicked in the animation space, which is something that never happened before. So they've been through rough spots before, and they've come out the other side. So I do have faith that that could happen to them in this case. But I mean, you have to kind of go all the way back to around 2006, when Iger first came in as CEO, and he basically his idea of how they're going to work was identify good talent and good properties and buy them, which
Mhm.
was a good strategy at first. Did that with Pixar.
Yep.
They did that with Lucasfilm a number of years later. They did that then with Fox, and in each one of those acquisitions, it was a combination of cash and stock options that were then given to those various stakeholders or shareholders. Um, and so because that, a lot more investors got involved, and I think a lot of the reasons why they're in the troubles they're in is because there's so many more cooks in the kitchen telling Disney and the creative heads of these studios what to do. And it's not really a creative process anymore. A lot of the creative talent that was there sort of in the early years of those studios and in the acquisitions have since left, and they really leveraged everything on streaming. So all of those properties that they had bought, we're going to buy Pixar, we're going to buy Lucasfilm, we're going to buy Marvel, we're going to buy Star Wars. Lucasfilm, we're going to buy Fox.
Yeah.
We're going to leverage all those things, and we don't need to go to the distributors, the theaters, or anything anymore. We don't need to even spend a bunch of money and print actual copies of our media. We can just go direct onto streaming. We can build up our own site and go direct onto streaming, and people will come to us and give us their money hand over fist because we have the best properties and the best brands
Yeah.
ever. Well,
Hmm.
that might be a good idea, except streaming wasn't the Goliath new change in the industry that we thought it would be,
That's
as
true.
many of these studio heads wanted it to be. At least
Hmm.
it still was a huge game changer, but not as much as they thought. That turns out the theater experience is still super important to making all the money back that you throw into these projects.
Yeah.
But then also they totally mishandled their brands, because when you have the big brands like a Star Wars, like a Marvel, like a Pixar, if you want people to come to you, you need to continue to make stories and make media and produce content that is to that quality of people's
Yes.
expectations of that brand. And when you
Hmm.
don't do that, people are going to stop coming to you because then you poison the brand. You are
Right.
starting to see this, or you have seen this with Star Wars, with a lot of the kind of the deconstruction storytelling that they put, that they kind of started with The Last Jedi and kind of continued.
Oh yeah.
You see a lot of this sort of mindset in terms of not really giving people what they expect out of Star Wars. It's something completely different, and is breaking down the brand of Star Wars. It's not pushing it up. and it's not building it up, it's breaking things down. And so I think that's what happens. And you see this across all kinds of other studios too. It's not unique to Disney.
Right.
Again, I'm that's kind of my theme, I guess, of this one, is that
Mhm.
a lot of these problems aren't actually unique to Disney. They're kind of industry wide. But
Yeah.
this is very important to understand what part of Disney, how the history actually impacts what we're seeing now in today's landscape.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I agree with most of your points. I would say, I don't know if the creative people now have left Disney. I think, what Iger was great is he lets the creatives lead. The only person that Kevin Feige ever had to report to when Iger was there was Alan Horn, when Alan Horn was still the head of Disney Studios, all of the film divisions. And Alan Horn, one of the best, I think, executives ever. I think those three, were really the key success for Marvel. And as you said, I mean, Infinity Saga has been great, and then the rest of them, Multiverse Saga, have been lacking. And I think, like you said, yeah, putting out like all this shows, movies, content, it's good if the quality is there. That will make people come to your streaming service, like you said. But the fact that Disney Plus is cranking out so many dang shows,
Mhm.
and not most of them aren't good and have ruined the brand, exactly like you said. And I don't want this Disney brand to be ruined, but if they continue down this path of pushing things just down everybody's throats, and this goes with every other studio too, if it's not good, we're not going to be here for it. So
Mhm.
I hope they can right the ship. I think they will. And like I said, it's going to take a couple of years for us to see the impact of Bob Iger's return to Disney here. I think a great timetable, I guess, would be 2026. He returned last year around this time, I think. So
I think so.
I think that's a good enough time to kind of judge his return here and see how he did. But I got faith in him because he did great when he took over as CEO from Michael Eisner, and just hopefully he picks a better successor this time. Is my only guess, because I want Disney to be saved. It's reached 100. I hope it